All right, Bulls and Bears, how's everybody doing? Hope you're doing good. We're back with another dose. A lot of news to get caught up on today. The layoffs, the fallout from the layoffs. We have people posting on social media about how they're struggling. And some of these people that got laid off, the federal workers, some of them already resorting to payday loans just within weeks here of getting laid off. Payday loans just to meet their financial obligations, folks. So a lot of these people are going to be in very severe financial distress, if not wiped out completely. We're going to get into that. We're going to get into other news today. What do we got here? Another agency basically letting go of about thousands of people, but it's going to affect about 8,000 electrical vehicle chargers. We're going to talk about another area that's seeing cuts and how that could impact electric vehicle owners. An email was sent out to federal workers basically laying it out that you have to type up a report and lay out what you've been doing, the type of work you've been doing, what you've accomplished. All right, that's what's being asked of these federal workers, and they have to submit it. And if they don't answer, they're basically going to get laid off. It says employees are, deciding if they want to even answer this email. But if they don't answer it, they're saying they're going to get laid off. So they're going to have to answer it. But we have a conflict here. We have multiple agencies and unions have reportedly told federal workers not to respond to the email demanding that they account for their work over the last week. Despite Elon Musk's threat, they'll lose their jobs if they don't. So we've got this battle going on right now, and there's going to be a lot of lawsuits. It's going to be a big mess. Remember 4 years ago, or not 4 years ago, 2016 to 2020, all the investigations, all the conflicts, the lawsuits. I mean, it's going to be another 4 years of absolute madness. And, we're going to try to unravel how it's going to play out economically. But if you're looking for a job or on the job market at all, you're going to have a very difficult time competing with a lot of federal workers now also looking for the job in the private sector. Looking for a job in the private sector, and you're going to be up against hundreds of people, especially for remote working jobs, all jobs, but especially remote working jobs. Take a listen to how one person put it as far as the competitiveness now in the job market. Let's go ahead and take a listen about how one federal employee breaks it down here.
Didn't think it would get to this point. I'm a federal employee. A remote federal employee at that. I moved with my husband because of military orders about a year and a half ago, and he got out and got his first, federal civilian job. So he's a probationary federal employee, and we are both scrambling to figure things out so that hopefully our 3-year-old's life doesn't have to completely change.
They have a 3-year-old. So there's people out there actually making fun of these people. I'm not making fun of anybody that's losing their job, private or public sector. There's young people involved. They have kids. So do we need to cut spending and possibly cut a lot of wasteful entities and agencies? Yes. It would be nice to have such a strong job market where all these people would have a place to go work. But we're going to see how it plays out. We'll continue to listen here.
And we can support the baby that I have on the way in 2 months.
Baby on the way and you're laid off. Whew. We talked about here on this channel about how many people were not having babies, how the birth rate has plunged because people were afraid financially that everything's just too expensive, and now add this on top of it.
I don't even know how to feel right now. I mean, I just watched a video of someone saying that a federal employee just offed themselves because of this whole situation, because they lost their job. It sucks. I don't know if I'm going to have health care when I go to have this baby in a couple months. I don't know if I can pay my mortgage in a couple months, We have no clue.
So many people are trapped under a huge mortgage. 1-2 missed paychecks, they're done.
What's going to happen? I'm scared. I worked my butt off to be in the position that I'm in right now. For context, I worked at McDonald's while my husband was active duty. because I couldn't get a job in 2020 when I graduated and COVID hit. So I worked at McDonald's to pay our rent at the time. And the job that I'm at now is the job that gave me my first big break 4 years ago. And I've put everything I have into it. I've climbed the ladder. And this is what it comes to.
And let's hear from somebody else about how it's going to affect the job market.
Terminations and layoffs. Let's discuss how these mass federal terminations and layoffs are going to affect the job market and what that's going to mean for job seekers. So for one, you are going to have an increased number of applicants entering in private and nonprofit sectors from federal service, and it's going to make the job market extremely competitive. Now, if you are entry level or if you are, mid-level, or even executive level, this is going to impact everyone because now you have all of these senior executives and highly skilled federal employees with lots of degrees, lots of experience entering the market. I don't think people understand how rigorous federal hiring is, and most federal jobs require some form of degree. Not all of them, but most of them do. So now you have the...
Okay, I actually didn't know that. Most federal jobs require some sort of degree, so there are going to be a lot of highly qualified individuals entering the job market.
Is people who are displaced out of federal service going back into private sector. Organizations and companies are going to start increasing the qualifications for applicants. And recruiters are going to start looking for more than just maybe a certificate or certification in certain career fields that once was skating by. That's not going to be the case anymore. So the next impact that you're going to see is with salary negotiations. And what I mean by that is everybody knows public sector, you make far less than you do in private sector. So I'm a GS-12. I make $90,000 a year, which is good money. But I know for the amount of money that I handle and control with M's and B's, I could be making 150, close to 2. Now, if I go into private sector and I ask for $120,000, that's good money. That's a $30,000 pay increase. Whereas you would have probably been asking for that 150 or 175 salary. The company's winning by picking me because I'm like 150 and save them $25,000. So you see how that is going to impact because...
So basically, she's saying it's going to drop wages. I mean, of course, when you get an influx of millions of new applicants to a job, the hiring company, they can afford to be much more picky and choosy about who they pick. And with so much more demand for the job, they don't have to pay as much of a salary. If so many more people are desperate for a job, they might work for, instead of $70,000, they'll work for $65,000. Maybe they'll work for $60,000, right? The more desperate people are, right, the more people are looking for jobs and the more lack of jobs there are, companies are going to have more leverage, right? So that's another downside, another negative part of this. Also, people that supported this administration that's doing these layoffs, and I'm not laughing, I'm just saying it's a little bit ironic. A lot of people that supported the administration are losing their jobs. They're not going through and saying, okay, you supported this person or that person, you're right, you're left. They're not picking and choosing people like that. They're taking a axe to agencies and laying off a lot of people at the same time on both sides of the political aisle. All right, so there's going to be negative consequences, not just for the people laying off, but for people even in the private sector. It's going to be much, much more competitive. But folks, look at the debt. We had to do something about this. This is all sector debt, all sectors. That includes private, what we just call consumer debt, corporate debt, government debt. Now look at this, over $100 trillion, folks, when you add it all together, right? And if you look at back here, we try to focus on 1971 because that was the year we came off the gold standard. Up until 1971, you can see down here, right, where the mouse is, it was barely noticeable, right? The debt was barely noticeable. And what happens when you no longer have restrictions on the amount of money that you can create, or what people would say print, it starts to explode. Debts start to explode because pretty much you can loan out money out of nothing because there's nothing backing it. So do you think it's a coincidence that it shot up after 1971, folks? So it all comes back to how money is issued into the economy, how it's created. And even when you borrow money at your bank, the bank doesn't have the money, folks. It's just digits on a screen. So people are still scratching their head, wondering why inflation hasn't come down and why the cost of living hasn't really come down. That's why, folks. So pretty interesting chart, in my opinion. Student loan borrowers crushed by an appeals court ruling, and their credit scores are now plunging. So these people that borrowed a lot of money for a college degree, the appeals court delivered a crushing blow on Tuesday to more than $475 billion worth of student loan cancellations. And a lot of these borrowers, former students and current students, their credit scores are plunging by, in some cases, 100 points and more. For thousands of borrowers, the past few weeks have been a wake-up call as credit monitoring services sent out alerts. Many are realizing that their credit scores have dropped over 100 points, some by as much as 200 due to the missed student loan payments. A 200-point drop in your credit score. Imagine being 700 and get dropped down to 500. If you're not borrowing money, it doesn't matter too much, but collection activity and negative credit reporting was turned off during the payment pause from March 2020 to August 2023. After that, borrowers had a grace period protecting them from negative credit reporting between September 23 and September 2024. That's now expired. So what was that, 3 months ago, 4 months ago? Now these people are seeing a major impact on their credit scores, and some of them are panicking. It's important to remember that the payments were automatically paused for most borrowers starting in March 2020. After multiple extensions, we reported on those here many times, the pause officially ended and negative reporting is now officially ended. So it's hitting their credit scores. And remember, a lot of people that have degrees, we just heard from that person earlier, said that a lot of federal employees have college degrees, that most of them are required to have degrees. How many of them have massive student loan debt, and now their credit scores are dropping, and now they need to go out and maybe sell their home and rent an apartment? Their credit scores are going to be dinged up so bad. Nobody knows the number. How many of these people are going to have a hard time even renting an apartment when your credit score drops by 100 or 200 points? Everything is going to become more difficult. It's going to be harder to get a balance transfer because a lot of people are playing the musical credit card balances where they transfer the debt over here, pay it off with a balance transfer offer for 0% for 12 months or something. It's going to be more difficult now with these lower credit scores for a lot of these people to keep their head above water here financially. And here's a update on the $5,000 stimulus checks that were talked about, where people were going to get $5,000, taxpayers, I should say, $5,000 because of all the elimination of this wasteful spending and actually recovering some of the funds. Well, House Speaker out there for the United States, House Speaker's out there saying, quote, "Everybody loves a check, but we have a giant deficit. I think we need to pay down the credit card." So basically all the money that's been borrowed here, the debt, the national debt. He's saying that we shouldn't give out people any stimulus checks, or some people aren't even calling them stimulus checks. They're calling them recovery checks, saying that they're basically recovering the money, whatever you call it. The $5,000 checks, he's saying shouldn't go out. We should just use that to pay down the debt. The thing is, we're at $1 trillion a year just in interest on the debt. So you're going to have to save a lot of money just to pay the interest on the debt. So I don't think that's going to work. Is $5,000 going to really rescue people? It might keep them in their home or apartment for a few months if they're out of work, but $5,000, it's not going to be changing many people's life, that's for sure. So as far as the $5,000 checks, it's not written in stone. It's not even written as something that's definitely going to happen. It's just being talked about. That's all it is right now. Could it just be a talking point to get people on board with all this cutting? Absolutely. I mean, we've seen a lot of other things that were said or promised that didn't play out. Again, look at all the student loans that thought they were going to get their loans erased, and they thought it was going to be the taxpayer that was just going to pay for their student loan, that it was just going to get erased. And look what happened there. These people are now getting dinged on their credit scores, and it's being reported now. So things that seem like they're going to happen, or if you think they may happen, they may not happen. Now, when it comes to these agencies that are being cut and many people being laid off, people are concerned about not getting their tax refund, because we know that a lot of people getting their jobs cut are people in the IRS, like thousands of people at the IRS getting notified that they're being laid off. But we have a report here from someone saying that don't worry about it. they actually got their refund. To all of you fear mongers, and what's his name, KB, he says, to all you fear mongers, stop lying about the IRS layoffs affecting our tax returns. I submitted my tax return last week and just received my little federal refund. Now, Jersey needs to step up their game, so he hasn't got a state return yet, it sounds like. So that's pretty fast. A week, right? Is that even possible? A week after filing it? He said it was a small refund, so maybe. But I know people that have filed now, what's this? Today's the 23rd of February. I know people that have filed at the end of January because they got their W-2, very quickly. And so they're waiting over 3 weeks. And this guy, whoever this is over there at X, says he got his in a week. So what do you think about that? Do you believe him? Have you gotten your return? Please let me know down in the comments. Are you still waiting? If you are waiting, please let us know how long you've been waiting for your return. And also, when it comes to a lot of these people getting laid off, unemployment's not going to really go too far. Maryland's unemployment benefit rate is capped at $430 a week, and it hasn't changed since 2010, so it's nowhere near kept up with inflation. With thousands of federal workers in the region facing layoffs, Maryland's in the D.C. area, one local lawmaker says an increase is long overdue. More than 77,000 federal workers live in Montgomery County, folks. So $430 a week cap. So you're talking less than $2,000 a month income, folks. That's going to be very difficult to keep up with your cost of living with that type of unemployment income. And here's a shot of some of the protesters, people in the crowd. Hundreds protest mass layoffs, sweeping federal agencies in Washington, D.C. And also, I'd really like to hear from you down in the comments. Let us know if you're looking for a job. How competitive is it? I spoke with one person, and he said about 600 people applied for a job that he was trying to get at some insurance agency. And I think they were hiring maybe 10 or 12 people for a training class for underwriting. And 600 people applied. That's what his recruiter told him. And I have to check in to see if he actually got the job or not. But he said he was told 600 people for a 10 or 12 position opening at a insurance company. Pretty interesting. All right, let's move on, folks. Warren Buffett, another record cash position. He had already a record position a few months ago. We talked about this. Another record cash position. So he continues to sell off assets and gain more cash. It hit an all-time high of $334 billion. And that was said to be highlighted in a shareholder letter out of Berkshire Hathaway. So what does he see again? What does he see on the horizon? We've been looking at this for a long time, thinking there's got to be some sort of a black swan situation that brings this whole house of cards down. Will these job cuts burst some of these bubbles, maybe just in the D.C. area, maybe nationwide, with all the people that are going to be unemployed, and that's lower spending now in the economy. And we know that consumer spending is about 70% of the economic growth if you base that on the gross domestic product number. So will this drop off in people's ability to spend have this impact on the economy? Will this maybe start turning things around a little bit, and we'll start seeing some recessionary type of values as far as the cost of living, homes, cars, everything else, the cost of food? Or is it not going to matter? Is it not going to matter because production is so low, and that the stuff we have to import, because we don't produce much here in the U.S., the stuff we have to import is now going to be more expensive with the tariffs, even with all these tens of thousands, and ultimately it's going to be millions of job losses in a very short amount of time. Even with all that, will there still be no deflation? Will there still be no lower cost of living? It's still going to be inflation, rising cost of living, because the tariffs are going to kind of wipe out all the deflationary things that we would have noticed or would have felt under an economy that has massive job losses. I mean, please let me know down in the comments. We've never seen this type of thing happen before. We have so many different things to try to factor in here. So I'm at a loss as far as what's going to happen. I just continue to look for investment opportunities, trying to keep my head above water, investing, still stacking silver. Not really stacking too much right now. In fact, when it comes to digital assets and cryptos, a lot of people just got some very bad news when they check their accounts. Take a look at this. Hackers steal $1.5 billion from crypto exchange in the biggest digital asset heist ever. Bybit platform appeals to the brightest minds in cybersecurity for help. They're asking for help after an attacker transfers Ethereum currency. Wow. So that's a big one there. $1.5 billion, folks. So be careful where you keep your money. That's one thing about physical assets and precious metals. You really don't have to worry about that type of thing. You have it at home and you're safe. Somebody can still come and take it, but not as easy as someone just clicking a few buttons and getting your investments off of some digital platform somewhere, right? So be careful is all I'm saying, folks. I'm not saying, how to invest, what to invest in, what not to invest in. Do your research and due diligence. And let's get through this together, folks. Please make sure you're subscribed. We're going to wrap this one up here. What do you think about all this? Again, let me know if you're looking for a job. Are you seeing it being very competitive? And if you're a federal worker, really like to hear from you. And have you gotten your tax return? And if you're still waiting, how long has it been? Down in the comments, folks. Let's talk about this. Everybody keep stacking. Bye for now. Peace.